This is View from the Top. I'm Modele Sharafa. So thank you for joining us. The United Nations Population Fund is the lead UN agency for delivering a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person's potential is fulfilled. These it does by expanding the possibilities for women and young people to lead healthy and productive lives. Records show that since UNFPA started working in 1969, the number and rate of women dying from complications of pregnancy or childbirth has been halved. Families are smaller and healthier. Young people are more connected and empowered than ever before. But UNFPA says there's still so much more to do. Nearly 1 billion people remain mired in extreme poverty. Sexual and reproductive health problems are a leading cause of death and disability for women in the developing world. Young people bear the highest risks of HIV infection and unintended pregnancy. And much more than 100 million girls face the prospect of child marriage and other harmful practices such as female genital mutilation. Leading the UNFPA efforts to do much more to ensure a world in which all individuals can exercise their basic human rights is Nigeria's own Professor Babatunde Oshotimehin, United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Director of the UNFPA. Thank you, Professor Oshotimehin, for joining us.
Thank you, Madam.
Here's a quick biography before our conversation. Born on 6 February 1949, Babatunde Oshotimehin completed his medical studies at the University of Ibadan in 1972 and received a doctorate in medicine from the University of Birmingham in 1979. From 1980, he was a professor of clinical pathology at the College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, and rose to become provost in 1990. Dr. Oshotimehin served as the Director General of the Nigerian National Agency for the Control of AIDS and later Minister of Health of Nigeria. He was appointed in 2010 as the Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund for a 4-year term and was reappointed to the position in 2014. Professor Oshotimehin is a Fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Sciences. He's also a member of the Royal College of Physicians, United Kingdom, member of the Nigerian Medical Association and the Nigerian Institute of Management. He was awarded the National Honor Officer of the Order of the Niger. The United Nations Agenda 2030 makes a strong call for the promotion of universal access to human rights and better health and the reduction of inequalities. Universally, how well are we doing to attain these goals?
When the United Nations was established 70 years ago, there are 3 pillars. And one pillar is the human rights pillar. That's the one that has done poorly and badly. There was peace and security, there was development, there was human rights. Human rights pillar did not do well because there was a pushback or a silence around it. 10 years ago, we started talking about human rights in a totally different way. Today and last year, when we then adopted the Agenda 2030, human rights became the basis of development. And I'm very pleased because I think every individual should be able to exercise his or her rights wherever he or she may be. Now that, I think, it's a major milestone. The other point, which actually Agenda 2030 brings forth, is that this is a consensus of all of the countries in the world. We're not talking now of one country saying, no, I'm not going to do this. It's everybody that says, these 17 goals, we have to have them. And the 17 goals speak to themselves. We're not going to pick out one to do because that's not the essence and the philosophy and the DNA of them. They're supposed to work in tandem. As distinct to what we did with the Millennium Development Goals, where they had vertical programs. I can say I'm going to spend money reducing HIV transmission, which was at that time acceptable. But right now, you cannot talk of health without education. You cannot talk of health without rights. You cannot talk of any of these things without good governance. So it's all together. And I'm very happy about that because it also brings more transparency and accountability around governments and around civil society and around the private sector. So I think we're on to a good thing.
Let's bring it down to Africa. The theme for the recently concluded 27th African Union Summit is women's rights, human rights. And as former President Joyce Banda once said, the seeds of success in every nation are best planted in women and children. Do you reckon that Africa is finally getting serious about these issues?
Africa is finally getting serious about it, but Africa must act. It's not about just saying it, it's about doing. So Africa's food security is maintained by women. Women farmers are the ones that provide food for the table. Why are we not compensating them? Why are we not giving them rights to land? Why are we not empowering them to produce far more than they produce? I mean, those are the things we have to, address. Now, I like the fact today that the UNFPA did say, all of us are born of a woman. We have sisters, we have daughters, we have cousins who are women. Why do we want to continue to talk of them as second class in our society, when in point of fact, we have proven evidence that they can perform sometimes better than men, and to extent where gender equality and parity has worked, and has worked better in societies where this has been given space to work. So Africa needs to go forth and to do this and do it, not just talk, but actually do something about it.
Nigeria's population is said to be between 160 and 185 million, depending on whose figures you're using. But according to the UNICEF figures, of the 168 million people in Nigeria, about 85 million are under 18 years of age. That's more than 50%. What are the opportunities and challenges inherent in this demographic pattern?
Africa's demography today says 60–70% of the population of Africa is below the age of 30. Now, that is the greatest opportunity we have to develop an asset which is just their potential. Japan has no natural resource, just developed its people. South Korea, no natural resource, just developed its people. But it took certain important decisions that enable them to do so. One, prioritizing education. And I'm not talking education in terms of literacy and numeracy. I'm talking education in its broadest sense. So that when these kids go to school and they come out of school, they feel confident, supremely confident that they can do anything and they can take the world on. Now, the second is health. And health is so critical because if you don't have a healthy population, you are not going to get anywhere. Now, I'm talking health now, even from pregnancy. Africa is losing billions of dollars today, and Nigeria included, because of stunting. Children are not fed appropriately, and it starts from pregnancy. And we're not talking now of expensive food. We're talking of just a balanced meal that these children need to have. And I think that's a major one. The second, of course, as you did say, is sexual reproductive health. Why do we have the largest cohort of young people who are still infected with HIV today? Because we don't give them, the appropriate education and health service to be able to protect themselves and look after themselves. And incidentally, modernly, most of them are young adolescent girls. So it is about, again, gender equality and the ability of these young people to know and to have information. So they can prepare themselves for transition between childhood and adulthood, and they can also know about their vulnerabilities and protect themselves.